I'm Gina. Sitting in my new backyard, watching my daughter Lily play in the small yellow room she painted herself, I'm reminded of the long and arduous journey that led us here. It all started with a seemingly innocent bonus statement that turned my world upside down. I work at Horizon Insights as a data analyst. My supervisor, Mark Taylor, is a man who knows how to play the corporate game. He has a knack for getting close to the upper management through expensive dinners and exclusive events, something I, as a single mother, could never partake in. A few years ago, I was going through a tough time. My ex-husband had left me with a mountain of debt and custody of our 6-year-old daughter, Lily, who suffers from asthma. When I joined Horizon Insights, it was a ray of hope. The job offered stability, which was all I needed at that time. I had a small one-bedroom apartment in a not-so-great neighborhood, but it was close to a decent school. Lily slept in the bedroom, and I made do with a fold-out couch in the living room. Mark recognized my talent right away. He would often say, "Gina, you have an eye for details that others miss." But I soon realized that his praise came with a catch. He had a habit of taking credit for the team's work and distancing himself from any failures. For a long time, I kept my head down. I came in early, left late when my mother could take care of Lily, and produced top-notch analyses. Mark would present them as team efforts, and I was okay with it because every small raise meant one step closer to financial stability for Lily and me. Then, the company hit a rough patch during an economic downturn. The CEO announced emergency cost-cutting measures, including a freeze on raises and bonuses, unless someone could identify significant savings within the company. Mark volunteered our department. One evening as I was packing up, he stopped by my desk. "Gina, the CEO needs someone to analyze everything: supply chains, workflow, energy usage. Find millions in savings. There's a huge bonus for the person who can do it, life-changing money," he said, his eyes shining. I thought of Lily's nightly wheezing and the mold in our bathroom that just wouldn't go away. I should have been more cautious, asked for more details in writing, but I said, "I'll do it." The project consumed the next 8 months of my life. I analyzed every aspect of the company's operations, from the number of printers in each department to the efficiency of the heating systems. I created models that showed potential savings from remote work policies and consolidated vendor contracts. Lily would fall asleep on the couch as I worked late into the night, her breathing machine humming in the background. My mother, who had her own health problems, helped whenever she could. Finally, I completed the report, which identified $3,700,000 in potential annual savings. When I showed it to Mark, his expression changed from shock to calculation in an instant. "This is amazing, Gina. I need to review it before presenting it to leadership," he said. 2 days later, in the conference room, Mark stood at the front, clicking through my slides. He said things like, "As my team discovered," and "Our analysis shows." The CEO was impressed and authorized the promised bonus. Mark accepted the congratulations, casually gesturing in my direction as his analyst. I didn't care about the credit. I was focused on how that bonus would change our lives. I had planned every penny: medical bills, a security deposit for a better apartment, a reliable used car, and a small emergency fund. But then, Mark dropped the bombshell. He pushed a paper across his desk without looking up and said, "There's a new 25% management fee on your 8-month bonus. Company policy." I stared at the numbers. My $15,000 bonus was now $11,250. A management fee? I repeated, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. I had worked at the company for 4 years and had never heard of such a thing. Mark finally looked up and said, "Yes, Gina. Management oversees all major projects, and this fee reflects that involvement." I held the paper carefully, trying not to let my shaking hands tear it. "When exactly was this policy created?" I asked. "It's always been there, just never applied before due to budget constraints," he said, tapping his expensive watch. I knew he was lying. I had reviewed every company policy manual 3 times during my efficiency audit. I replied calmly, trying to keep my emotions in check. But inside, I was furious. I thought about the implications of that $3,750 being taken away. It was Lily's asthma treatments for a year, the security deposit for a mold-free apartment, and the money I had promised my mother to help with her medical bills. That night, I sat on my kitchen floor, surrounded by bills. Lily's inhaler prescription, several late rent notices, and the ongoing water damage on our ceiling that the landlord ignored. All those late nights away from Lily, all that hard work, and now a quarter of my bonus was gone, likely into Mark's pocket. After putting Lily to bed, I started researching company policies. I found nothing about management fees on bonuses. I checked my employment contract. The bonus structure was clearly defined, with no deductions other than standard taxes. My phone buzzed. It was my mother asking, "Did you get your bonus?" I couldn't tell her the truth yet, so I replied, "Still processing. Should have it soon." Looking at Lily's school picture on the fridge, I knew I couldn't let this go. It wasn't just about the money, it was about dignity and the promises made. I pulled up the company's financial disclosure policies, the employee handbook on reporting ethical concerns, and the organization chart. Mark reported to the vice president of analytics, who reported to the chief operations officer, who reported to the CEO. I wasn't sure if they would take my concerns seriously. Then, I noticed an alert on my calendar, a team meeting the next day at 9 a.m. Mark would be presenting the quarterly plan, and the chief financial officer usually attended to discuss budgets. A plan started to form in my mind. The next morning, I stopped by the local bakery and bought 24 assorted pastries, something I'd never done before. The cashier raised her eyebrows when I asked for an extra large black coffee. "Long night?" she asked. "Long 8 months," I replied. "But maybe things are about to change." I arrived at the office half an hour early. My colleagues were surprised when I offered them the pastries. "What's the occasion?" asked Jake, our marketing liaison. "Just thankful for such a great team," I said, forcing a smile. I saved Mark's favorite, a chocolate croissant, and placed it on a napkin next to his seat in the conference room, along with the large coffee. When Mark walked in, he looked haggard. He was wearing the same clothes as the day before, with dark circles under his eyes, and his hair was poorly combed. "Late night?" I asked innocently. He mumbled something about finalizing the quarterly budget and grabbed the coffee gratefully. As the meeting started, I raised my hand. "I have a question about the new bonus fee structure." Mark's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. "We can talk about this privately, Gina," he said. "I'm just confused. Did everyone else's project bonuses have the 25% management fee?" I asked, looking around the table. Confusion spread across my colleagues' faces. "What management fee?" asked Sarah, our finance coordinator. Just then, the CEO and the chief financial officer walked in. The CEO said, "Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to personally check on the implementation of those great cost-saving measures." He nodded at me. "Your analysis was excellent work." Mark laughed nervously. "We were just discussing implementation strategies." "Actually," I said softly, "we were discussing this 25% management fee on project bonuses. I'm trying to understand when this policy was created." I looked at the CFO. "Would your office have records of this?" The CFO frowned. "There's no such policy," she said. Mark cleared his throat. "It's a recent implementation. It might not have reached all departments yet." I took out a folder from my bag. "That's strange. Here's my bonus statement with the deduction clearly marked as a management fee, company policy." I slid the paper towards the CFO, who picked it up with a deepening frown. "I've never seen this format before," she said. The CEO stepped forward. "What's going on here?" Mark quickly said, "It's a misunderstanding. Gina received her bonus yesterday, and there might be some confusion about standard deductions." I replied quietly, "A 25% deduction isn't standard, and according to my employment contract, the bonus structure is very clear." Then, I slid another paper forward. It was a spreadsheet that Mark had accidentally left open on his computer when he rushed to the bathroom after I brought him his croissant. It showed a special performance incentive equal to 25% of my bonus allocated to himself. The room fell silent. The CFO took the paper, studied it, and passed it to the CEO. Mark demanded, "Where did you get this?" "From your computer screen. You left it open when you stepped out." "I was leaving a report on your desk," I replied. "I wouldn't usually look at your files, but seeing my bonus amount with that exact 25% figure under your name caught my attention." The CEO's expression hardened. "Mark, can you explain this?" Mark laughed hollowly. "It's a mistake in the spreadsheet. I was working late." The CFO interrupted, "Spreadsheets don't usually involve redirecting employee bonuses to management." She then turned to me. "Ms. Davis, how long have you worked here?" "For years next month," I answered. "Have there been other unusual deductions in your compensation?" I hesitated. There had been smaller instances before, like a promised raise that was lower than discussed and a training fee that no one else paid. "There have been discrepancies," I said carefully. The CEO said, "We need to continue this in my office. Mark, bring all bonus documentation from the past year. Ms. Davis, join us too." As everyone left, Mark grabbed my arm and hissed, "You have no idea what you've done." I gently removed his hand and said, "I think I do." My phone buzzed with a text from Lily's school. She had another asthma attack, and she needed to go home. I felt that familiar pang of anxiety, the struggle between being a mother and keeping my job. I told the CEO, "My daughter is ill. I need to make a call." He nodded, his expression softening slightly. I stepped into the hallway to arrange for my mother to pick up Lily, knowing I was asking her for another favor despite her health problems. When I returned, Mark was already in the CEO's office. I could hear him through the door, saying how dedicated he was to the company and that one misunderstanding shouldn't ruin his years of leadership. I knocked and entered. The CFO was reviewing documents, and the CEO was looking out the window. The CEO said, "Please sit, Ms. Davis." I took the seat farthest from Mark, whose expression had changed from anger to a calculated calm. Mark said smoothly, "The management fee was a mistake. A misinterpretation of new budget guidelines. I'll fix it immediately." The CEO looked at me. "Is that satisfactory, Miss Davis?" I thought about it. The money would be returned, but the betrayal remained. And I knew the pattern would continue with someone else. "May I ask a question?" I said. The CEO nodded. "If there was no policy, why was the deduction labeled as company policy on my statement?" Mark's calm expression flickered. "It was a misinterpretation," he said. The CFO interrupted, "Which budget guideline specifically mentions deducting from employee bonuses?" Mark had no answer. The meeting lasted another hour. I answered questions about my work on the efficiency project, my previous interactions with Mark, and other financial discrepancies. In the end, the CEO asked Mark to take a temporary leave while they conducted an investigation. The CFO assured me that I would receive my full bonus immediately, plus interest. As I was leaving, Mark stopped me at the elevator. "You didn't have to do this. I've helped you professionally," he said. "You also took credit for my work and stole part of my bonus," I replied. He snapped, "It's not stealing. Those reports weren't easy to generate, and I had to convince leadership to approve the bonus." I said, "You were already paid a salary for your work." The elevator arrived, and I stepped in, but Mark held the door. You have no idea how this place works. This won't end well for you. I thought of all the sacrifices I'd made, the missed time with Lily, and said, it already hasn't ended well for me. And the doors closed between us. Over the next few days, I started to experience retaliation. My emails stopped reaching their recipients, files I needed disappeared from shared drives, and colleagues who used to chat with me at lunch started avoiding me. A week later, the vice president, who was Mark's friend, called me into his office. He said, I understand there was an incident with Mark. While the investigation is ongoing, we need to ensure productivity. I'm reassigning some of your projects to balance the workload. By the end of the day, I'd lost access to the efficiency implementation project I'd spent 8 months on. My new assignment was to audit the supply closet inventory across all 5 office locations. That night, I couldn't sleep. I had my full bonus in my account, but my position at the company felt insecure. The next morning, I received an email from Rachel Thompson, the head of internal audit. She asked to meet with me at 2 p.m. When I arrived at her office, I found a middle-aged woman with a no-nonsense look. She said, I've reviewed your efficiency report. It's impressive work. I was surprised. I'm no longer assigned to the implementation, I said. She nodded. I know. I also heard about the incident with Mr. Taylor. My department is investigating. Over the next hour, Rachel asked me detailed questions about my interactions with Mark, financial irregularities, and project credits. I answered truthfully and told her that I had started keeping records after the second time a promised raise was less than expected. When the meeting ended, she gave me her card. If you remember anything else or face any retaliation, contact me directly. Is this retaliation? I asked, referring to my project reassignment. She said, document everything and forward me any relevant communications. Over the next 2 weeks, things got worse. The supply closet audit expanded to creating a new cataloging system. My performance was reviewed daily, and meeting invitations were scheduled during Lily's doctor appointments. I documented every incident and forwarded relevant emails to Rachel. Mark returned from his temporary leave with a written warning but seemed otherwise unaffected. The vice president publicly welcomed him back, praising his leadership. Mark didn't speak to me directly, but I could feel his influence everywhere. Projects that I should have been involved in went ahead without my input. I decided to fight back. I returned to the efficiency report saved on my personal drive. I had spent 8 months analyzing every aspect of the company, so I knew exactly where to look for financial irregularities in Mark's 4-year tenure as department head. Every project budget he'd controlled, every bonus allocation, and every expense report became part of my investigation. 3 days into my investigation, Rachel called. The internal audit is complete. The results are interesting. Can you meet tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.? I agreed. After hanging up, I saved my work, encrypted the file, and backed it up to 3 different locations. I arrived at the office at 6:55 a.m. Holding my coffee like a lifeline. Rachel's office light was on. She waved me in and closed the door. Thanks for coming early, she said. Our audit committee found that the issues go far beyond your bonus deduction. There's a pattern of financial manipulation dating back 3 years: diverted bonuses, inflated project budgets, and bogus expense reports. Your documentation helped us identify the pattern. She pushed a thick folder towards me. The total amount misappropriated exceeded $170,000. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Despite the evidence, the executive team is hesitant to take action. The vice president wants a private reprimand and a repayment plan, no termination, no legal consequences, she said. I was angry. Because of his connections? I asked. She nodded. He claims it could damage the company's reputation. But the CEO isn't fully convinced. He's called a special meeting with the executive team tomorrow. Mark will present the quarterly strategy, including the implementation of your efficiency plan. She slid a document across the desk. As head of internal audit, I need someone to verify the financial projections in Mark's presentation. Here's a temporary authorization to restore your system access for 24 hours. I took the document. What should I verify? I asked. Everything, especially the projected savings for next quarter, she said. I spent that day reviewing Mark's implementation plan. As expected, he had made several changes. He delayed the most impactful changes, diluted others, and removed some that affected departments led by his allies. The modified plan would achieve only 40% of the projected savings. That evening, I prepared 2 documents. The first was an analysis of Mark's implementation plan, highlighting the deviations and their financial impact. The second was a comprehensive record of Mark's financial manipulations over 4 years, which I'd been working on for the past few nights. It included not only what the audit had found but also other connections I'd discovered. By midnight, I had documented nearly $290,000 in questionable transactions affecting 27 employees. I saved both files on a flash drive and went to bed. The next morning, I dressed carefully. I put on a black dress I'd bought on sale and the earrings my mother gave me for my birthday. Lily noticed. "You look pretty, Mom." "Thank you, sweetheart. Grandma will pick you up from school today. I might be working late." She nodded. "Will we move to the house with the yellow room soon?" I said, "I'm working on it. Things might change." At work, I reviewed Mark's presentation one more time. The executive meeting was at 2 p.m. At 1:30, Rachel walked past my desk.